without school and then without like having toys around, what kind of activities did you guys entertain yourselves with?
Well, we did have some organized sports, okay. There was flag football for the kids who were in middle school and high school. There were basketball teams for different age levels. Every block had about 250 to 280 people. And so there's enough for a team of 5, basketball players of the high school age, junior high school, elementary levels, whatever. So we had different leagues. We also had, there was a creek not too far away, and so we would go fishing. But we had to make our own hooks out of pin. But in our block, one of the guys who loved animals had a zoo. He had rattlesnakes, he had roadrunners, he had lizards and scorpions and whatever. And so we studied about the different animals. We went fishing for bluegills and crappie, snapping turtles. Colorado River was only 3 miles away. You can walk that in 45 minutes. And so we would escape. See, our camp had barbed wire on 3 sides, but not on this side. And here's the Colorado River to the west. So we would go to the river, swim to California. You can do some islands, the sandbars. You can do some island hopping, whatever. It was cold, and get back. Get hungry, so you get back. But on the way back, okay, there are mesquite trees, okay, and so. But then you see these wild horses, Mustangs, and so you're 8 years old, 9 years old, So what do? You see those horses, you chase them, But the horses are really smart, especially the stallions, and they knew that 8, 9-year-olds were harmless, right? And so they start chasing us, and so we run up into the trees, okay, to get away from their bites and whatever. And then they get tired of that, and they go back to the harem, and we come down, we go eat. But so we had, a big swimming pool. It was a mud hole, but we learned to swim. You had to swim. In fact, I went to school with a towel, okay. When it was nearing summer, a towel around my neck because it's cold in the morning. In the desert, it's very cold in the morning, and it heats up during the day. So I had my swimming trunks underneath. So after school's out, go to the swimming pool. So we all learned to swim.
I've read about there being like conflicts in the camps between people who are pro-Japan and people who are pro-America. Was that true for your camp?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In fact, the story of Saburo Kido, who was beaten up, the pro-Japan group, really beat him up badly one time, and then they were going to come back after him, and he was hidden in the hospital. Now, where was he hidden in the hospital? And they looked all over for him, but they didn't find him. And what the hospital staff did is they had on this one, on several beds, okay, they had 2 mattresses, right? And he was hidden between the 2 mattresses. And he was taken to for safety outside of the camp. And then later on, what's going to happen in all of these camps where there were pro-America groups, they're going to arrest it. Now, some of the guys were arrested and sent to the Yuma City Jail or county jail, whatever, because of assault, battery. So eventually what's going to happen is that they're going to be sent to Tule Lake. And some of the people at Tule Lake who were pro-America are going to be sent. So there's a little movement of internees. So Tule Lake becomes 2 camps, one regular one, and then there's going to be the stockade. And my friends their family decided, they're going back to Japan after the war, whatever. For their schooling, they went to a Japanese school. So that when they get to Japan, they can communicate.
A Japanese school at Tule Lake?
Not American style school. Now, when they get to Japan, Japan's in ruins, right? They're not welcomed by the Japanese. There's only a limited amount of food. So those people really had hardship.
Do you think that some people who wouldn't have originally been pro-Japan in the camps were turned to being pro-Japan because they felt America had betrayed them by taking away their civil rights?
Some of them would, yes. Yeah, that was a strong indication. Others were coerced by others, but there's a lot of, I don't know how many, but there were a number of young people who were discouraged.
When you were released from the camps, what was the first thing you wanted to do?
Eat ice cream. During the war, it was really hard to get foods that came from the tropics. So food was rationed. You had to register your family with the Office of Price Administration. And you had 4 in your family or 5 in your family, or you registered, and then you got so many those coupon stamps. And so if you wanted to buy meat or bacon or butter or cheese, you had to not only have the money, but you had to have the stamps. And so it was really hard to get things like ice cream, butter, bananas, pineapple, anything that came from the tropics, coffee, tea, overseas. The speed limit during World War II for cars was 35 miles an hour. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that was the top speed limit. The question is, how come? Save gasoline? No. Save rubber tires. Because rubbers came from Indonesia, okay? And so we had to develop synthetic rubber. Horse and buggies will start coming back again. We had wheatless days when you didn't eat any wheat. You had meatless days where you didn't eat any meat. In England, the number of ounces of meat was something like 6 ounces a week. You had bathless days. Kids loved that one, okay, because you saved soap because you wanted the soldiers to have the soap. And people in Europe needed, when we were conquering, going over and conquering, reconquering France, we wanted the French and others to have soap and medicine and whatever. So it was all part of the war effort. People didn't, they took their lawn out and planted vegetables.
You talked about before rattlesnakes and scorpions being a problem, but did learning about them help alleviate more people getting harmed by those?
There were people that were bitten, okay, but you don't die. Normally if you take care of it right away, you don't normally die from spider bites and scorpions and such. So we learned to live with them. You learned how to use a snake bite kit. So animals become, part of your life. Today we see a stray cat and that's about it. Maybe a hawk, but yeah, my dog, Sonny, disappeared, and we didn't know what happened. I thought somebody stole her. I was 8. I was crying, and maybe a coyote ate her. You know, there's those coyotes. I was crying. Then one day it reappeared. You know, I was so happy. And you know, you want to ask, well, where were you? You know, a dog can't talk, you know, but I was so happy to have the dog back. But I don't know what happened. But I was so glad to have her back. She was my best friend in camp, better than anybody. So growing up, from age, I had the dog since I was, what, 4 to 16. It was my constant companion.